Cheryl Bean, thank you so much. We appreciate it. So, why are you running for State House 97?
I'm running because I'm concerned with where our country's going. We seem to have lost our moral compass, in my opinion, and things are just not going the right way, both at the national as well as the state level. That's a concern that's been growing over time. And to be perfectly honest, I started a decade ago getting more heavily involved, whether it was involved in organizations like AFPI, American First, or Texas Public Policy and things, to get involved to see if I couldn't work on some of the issues that we have. And I kind of had this little knock in my head going, that's not enough, Cheryl. So then we started backing other politicians that we supported. And I guess when Goldman vacated his seat, there was a lot of call for me to run because I'm an active precinct chair. And there was a lot of call from inside me to run because I heard this voice that said, Cheryl, I have prepared you for a time such as this. You know, if you look at the defense training, the school board training, you have been in the middle of all the issues that we're facing in Texas right now and across this nation. It's your time to run. And I happen to be sitting at a time in my life when I can. My kids are grown, my business is stable, I can hand it over to my partner, which I have. So that's why I'm running.
Why should Republicans vote for you over your opponent, John McQueenie?
I have tremendously more experience and background and prepared to do this job. If you want to talk it from a business perspective, I have twice the years, we're both entrepreneurs and small business owners, but I also have worked for the largest corporation in Tarrant County, an employer, and have defense experience that goes well into the terrorist world, which is kind of what we're facing at the border. And so I've had that experience, I've had manufacturing, engineering, the whole breadth of experience from large company to small company experience. And in the education, one of the other worlds, I sit on a school board, my kids and myself and my grandkids are all in public schools. It's just a level of involvement as well. As I said before, I've been involved at the local, state, and national level politically and from a community perspective. So the experience is tremendously different.
Let's talk about endorsements. You are being backed by Senator Ted Cruz, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, AG Ken Paxton, the Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, Tarrant County Judge Tim O'Hare. Why is that, and what does this say about your campaign?
The interesting thing about most of those endorsements, I didn't even ask for them. It says that I am a person who has been engaged in this world and in this community for quite some time because most of them came to me and knew what my background and my credentials were. And it says they're supporting because if you notice, every single one of those people are not just putting a piece of endorsement on the page. They are calling and saying, I want to come do an event for you. Sid Miller will be here this week to Block Walk with me and do another event. So that's really what it says. I'm not new to this world. I may never have held an office before, but I certainly have been engaged politically as well as in the community.
Now, Governor Abbott is backing your opponent. Did you ever have a conversation with the governor or his team about an endorsement? And why do you think the governor is endorsing your opponent and not you?
That's a good question. A question that he's getting asked a lot as well by people who have endorsed me. But the reality of it is, I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. I will say though, my experience says most time if you follow the money, you'll find the answer. And if you look at my opponent and some of his staunch friends as well, supporters as well, have made huge donations to Abbott in the last year or two. But I don't know the real reason why. I am curious though, because he made that endorsement even though my opponent voted against him for a Democrat in previous years. So I don't know. You'll have to ask him that.
So let's talk about your priorities if you were elected. What are your top three?
Top three is the border, number one. I think that we are really fighting a war against terrorists. The facts are that the cartel is the largest and fiercest terrorist in the world. And they are coming in and they're taking over our country in many, many ways. And I think we have absolutely got to shut it down. I've just recently been to the border again and met with several people down there. That's a war. That is a war. It's not just an invasion, it's a war. And it's being used against us to, to affect our voting and our elections and our economy, everything about it. That's number one, without a doubt. Number two is education and our children. And I think that we desperately need to make some improvements there. We are one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest state in the entire nation. What is it, the 8th largest economy in the world even? And yet our public education is failing us right now. Furthermore, we're letting this whole woke environment take over what we're teaching our kids. The public school, charter school that I'm on the board of, we have faced a gender indoctrination in a horrific way where we have not only other students, parents, faculty teaching that you don't have to be a girl just because you're born a girl. You can choose to be something different. And that's not science, that's not biology, and in my opinion, that's child abuse to do that. So I think that the whole world of education is something that's really important. I think our business prosperity is a big deal. And the other one I want to say is our basic freedoms. I'm watching them erode. I've been here a while in the state, over 60 years, and it scares me to think about the world we're going to leave behind.
What freedoms are you talking about?
Speech, freedom of our choice of guns, basic just freedom to do and say and be what we're used to being able to do.
Here in Texas or nationally?
Both. You look at the ESG movement that came through where companies were getting an ESG rating. The company that we're sitting right now has an ESG rating. And that's based on not what they provide and the how well they do their budget. It's based on, well, are they socially doing what somebody thinks we should be able to do on diversity and equity and things that have absolutely nothing to do with business prosperity or the community. It's based on the energy use that they use. And to be quite frank, I'm all for taking care of our environment and our government, but what we're doing right now with the green energy thing is nothing more than a transfer of power and money to our enemy.
You spoke about the border.
Mm-hmm.
SB 4 is now in the federal courts. What happens? What should Texas do if it is ultimately ruled unconstitutional? Then what?
I think we have to take control of the border regardless. I really do. I think we have to put a stop to this if we want to keep our country America and if we want to keep Texas, Texas. My understanding in the research that I have done recently is that people coming across that border right now, particularly being flown in from places like Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, are being given 2-year work visas, social security numbers, and a voter's registration. People who don't live here, aren't citizens here, should not be able to vote for how this country is supposed to operate.
Is that, you're saying these people are receiving a voter ID or the right to vote in Texas?
Mm-hmm. And our House just recently voted down the law that would have, disallowed non-legal citizens to vote. So yes, it's actually true in 47 states, and most people don't realize that. I didn't realize that until a couple of weeks ago because I thought you had to have a driver's license to be able to vote because a driver's license showed birth certificate or proof of citizenship. There is ways around that, and our federal government is teaching these people how to do it. It's a scary thought.
You talked a little bit about education. Do you support school choice, universal school choice?
Yes, I support universal school choice, universal being defined as it's available for everyone, okay? And I think it needs to be defined in such a way that there's no strings attached. That's one of the top planks of the Republican Party.
And what about teachers? Do they deserve a raise?
Absolutely.
And should the legislature pass separate bill for that? Because this was an issue, obviously, during the last regular session. That didn't pass because school choice didn't pass. I mean, should these be separate legislation, or do you think they should be voted as one package?
I think they should be separate. Whether or not school choice ultimately passes, and I think it will, teachers deserve a raise. I think it's been 5 years since they've gotten it. And you think about it, their job is a hard job. My mom and sister are both lifetime educators. And they have to deal with all kinds of issues and, the ability that, for parents to come after and sue them. And so they deserve a raise. They are bringing up the future of Texas.
Should property taxes be eliminated?
I would love if they were eliminated. The reality of it is you've got to make up that money somewhere. But as someone who is kind of towards the, the latter years here and has houses paid off, it would be nice to know that ultimately you can retire and you're not going to be buried by rising property taxes. That's something you've already paid for. So I recognize that's going to require other means of collecting money, probably sales tax, but you can control what you spend. You cannot control the taxes on a house that you've owned for 30, 40 years.
And how soon, you said you support it, but obviously there needs to be a way to pay for state government to operate
Absolutely.
schools, et cetera. Do you think this is a long-term solution?
Yes, I don't think this is something that's an on-off. This year we have property taxes, next year we don't. This is going to be something that we have to develop other means of supplying that income for our government. So I think it will be a several-year effort.
You mentioned First Amendment, freedom of speech before. What do you make of the protests that we're seeing at universities across the country and some here in Texas, at UT? How do you think UT handled the situation last week with the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel protests?
I absolutely think that's horrendous. If you invited someone into your house and they went out to destroy it, would you let them stay? I wouldn't. If you think about World War III, and that's where, that's coming from, this is a different way of thinking of a world war. They are in our country fighting from within for their beliefs, and their beliefs are anti-American. So I think we need to shut it down. And yes, I believe we have freedom of speech, but that's abuse of freedom of speech when you start attacking other American citizens for what their religious beliefs are.
So you backed UT's decision to
Absolutely.
bring in police?
Yeah.
Also wanted to ask you about gambling. This comes up from time to time in the legislature. It did last session, didn't go anywhere. Where are you on casino gambling resorts in Texas?
I know that there are those who want to push that. It's a moot point and a waste of taxpayer money to go down that path because our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, has already said it will not pass as long as he's sitting at the head of the Senate. Secondly, anyone who wants to support that is really out to turn, I think, Texas Democrat, because with gambling comes some of the largest unions that you have, and it's not necessarily educated. It's going to be jobs that the illegals coming across the border can do, and it gives them a right to get a pathway to citizenship. But I don't want to, we are a red state. I hope to stay a red state. So I'm not a fan of gambling, and you think of those two things, but that goes before you think of all the issues that come with gambling. Anyone in Texas can go 2 or 3 hours and be in a state that offers gambling, and that's fine with me.
And my last question to you is, what else do you want people to know about your campaign?
Oh, there's lots of things. It's like, how do I narrow that down to 1 or 2 things? I think they need to know that I'm a fighter. I am here. I'm not doing this because I want to start a political career. Honestly, I've had 2 or 3 significant careers in my life, one in the defense world, one in the building industry. But I'm doing this because it's time to make a difference and it's time for change in Texas. Not necessarily that we won't change, but it's being forced on us and we need to remember where our roots are. So I am truly doing this to make a difference, not to build a political career in any form or fashion.
Cheryl Bean, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jack.
We appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.